February of 1959, a search team pushed deep into the frozen wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains, a vast, unforgiving range stretching for over 1,500 miles. Temperatures here can plunge below -30 degrees. Winds slice across the open slopes with nothing to stop them. A place where survival is never guaranteed. They weren't there by choice. They were searching for 9 hikers who had vanished weeks earlier. The group had been expected to return, but never did. Days passed, then weeks. No signal, no word, just silence. So rescuers were sent in. What they found would become one of the most disturbing mysteries in history. A tent, half buried in snow, collapsed, the fabric stiff with ice. And then, something that made no sense. The tent had been cut open. From the inside, their belongings were still there. Boots, clothing, food, left behind, as if they had fled in a hurry into the freezing darkness. The hikers weren't inexperienced. They were part of a skilled expedition group, young but highly trained, close friends, students and graduates, bound by a shared passion for exploration. At the center of it all was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student, respected, disciplined, known for his leadership and careful planning. This wasn't a casual trip. It was a certification expedition, one of the most difficult hiking categories in the Soviet Union. They carried proper gear, knew survival techniques, understood the risks. They were prepared for the cold, for the terrain, for the isolation. But whatever happened was something they weren't prepared for. The journey was brutal. Step by step, they pushed through deep snow, each movement heavy, each breath visible in the freezing air. The wind never stopped, cutting through layers of clothing, stealing warmth. At night, temperatures dropped even further, the kind of cold that turns simple mistakes into fatal ones. Still, they moved forward, climbing higher, deeper into isolation, further from help. Imagine standing there, miles from civilization, nothing but snow, silence, and the sound of wind that never lets you forget where you are. On February 1st, they made camp on the slope of Kolatshakal, a barren, exposed mountainside. No trees, no shelter. The name itself comes from the language of the indigenous Mansi people. It translates roughly to Dead Mountain, a place known for harsh conditions, relentless winds, and a history of danger. That night, darkness fell quickly. The wind intensified. Snow drifted across the tent. Inside, 9 people settled in, tired, cold, but alive. Then, something happened, something powerful enough to drive them out into the night. When rescuers arrived weeks later, they began to piece together what had happened. The tent was still there, but it told a story. The cuts in the fabric were made from the inside, not torn, not damaged from outside. Cut deliberately. Footprints led away from the tent, clear in the snow. Investigators could see the pattern. Bare feet, socks, very few boots, which meant one thing. They didn't leave dressed for the cold, and based on the condition of the campsite and the position of the sun during recovery, it became clear they fled in the middle of the night into a blizzard. The footprints stretched for nearly a mile, down the slope, toward a forest. At first, they were orderly, measured, not chaotic, which made it even more unsettling. They weren't running blindly, they were moving with purpose. But as investigators followed the trail, the snow began to distort the evidence. The prints faded, scattered, then disappeared, as if whatever happened next happened fast. After days of searching, they found the first 2 bodies. Near the edge of the forest, they were barefoot, lightly clothed, frozen. A small fire had been built, desperately, ineffectively. Branches above them were broken, as if they had climbed a tree, trying to see, trying to understand what was happening back at the tent. Among the rescuers shifted from concern to fear, but it didn't stop there. As the search continued, more bodies were found, scattered, separated, some closer to the tent, as if they had tried to go back. And then, investigators discovered something that changed everything, because some of the hikers had injuries that didn't match the environment. Broken ribs, crushed skulls, severe internal trauma, the kind of injuries you'd expect from a car crash. But there were no external wounds, no bruising consistent with a fight, no signs of struggle. Investigators were shocked, confused. Some theorized an avalanche, but the slope showed no clear evidence. Others considered a violent force, but there were no tracks, no signs of another presence. It was as if the damage had come from something invisible. Then came the details. That made the case even more disturbing. One victim was missing her tongue. Others were missing soft tissue. Some clothing showed traces of radiation. Investigators had no clear explanation. Each discovery raised more questions than answers. Theories spread quickly. An avalanche, military testing, secret weapons, even psychological explanations, infrasound, panic, disorientation. Each theory explained something, but never everything. The injuries didn't match the terrain. The behavior didn't match panic. The evidence didn't match any single cause. And that's what made it so unsettling. After months of investigation, the official conclusion was released. The hikers died due to an unknown compelling force, a phrase that answered nothing. The case was closed, files sealed. For years, questions remained buried. The public reacted with confusion. Speculation grew. And decades later, the mystery still remains. 9 people, experienced, prepared, gone, on a mountain known as Dead Mountain. And even now, with all we know, we still don't understand what drove them into the freezing night, because whatever happened was powerful enough to override instinct, to ignore survival, to force a decision that no one would willingly make. And that's what makes this story different. Not what we know, but what we don't. Because some mysteries don't just remain unsolved, they remain unsettling. If this story stayed with you, there are more waiting in the dark. Subscribe to Wild Stories After Dark.